You cry in silence to let God's love soothe the sadness your soul can't speak. Have you ever cried in silence? The kind of cry no one sees, no one hears, and no one understands? That moment when the world is asleep, and your heart feels like it's breaking in secret. You smile in front of others, but inside, something hurts that you can't explain. You say nothing, because words no longer heal. You just keep going, pretending to be strong. But your soul is tired. Your silence has become your shield. And yet, God hears it all. Even the tears that never fall, even the prayers you couldn't finish, even the pain you never spoke aloud. Because God's love listens to the language of the soul, a language made not of words, but of feelings too deep for sound. When your lips are quiet, your tears start to speak. When you can't find a reason to stand, His hands hold you steady. He doesn't wait for perfect faith. He answers broken hearts. He doesn't need eloquent prayers. He understands your sighs. And when you think He's far away, He's already closer than your own breath. So don't rush away. Stay here for a moment. Because if you're listening to this message right now, it's not by chance. It's God whispering to your heart, reminding you that you are seen, you are loved, and your silence has never gone unheard. There's something sacred about the tears you hide. They are not proof of weakness. They are proof of your soul still fighting to heal. God has been watching you cry in silence, not to judge you, but to hold you, to soothe the sadness your soul can't speak. And today, that's exactly what He wants to do. Because even when life feels like too much and words feel too small, His love remains big enough to reach you, right here, right now, in your silence. The pain behind the smile. How many times have you smiled so no one would see how much it hurts? You tell everyone you're okay, but you know you're not. You laugh in public, but your soul trembles in private. You've learned to hold your pain quietly, as if hiding it could make it disappear. And yet, when the lights go out and the world falls silent, that ache in your chest whispers louder than ever. People look at you and see strength. They say, "You're doing so well." But they don't see the nights you can't sleep, the mornings when you wake up already tired, the moments when your heart feels heavier than your body can carry. You've become a master at pretending to be fine, pretending to have peace, pretending to have faith when your soul is running on empty. But God doesn't fall for your disguise. He sees beyond the practiced smiles and the polite, "I'm fine." He looks directly into the part of you that you keep hidden, the silent ache you never put into words, and instead of turning away, He moves closer. He doesn't ask you to explain yourself. He doesn't need you to prove your strength. He simply whispers, "You don't have to pretend with me, I see you." You may not realize it, but even now, God's love surrounds the places you've tried to hide. It wraps around your pain like a soft light around darkness, not demanding that it vanish, but gently transforming it. Because God doesn't shame your sadness, He sanctifies it. Your tears are not signs of weakness. They are proof that your heart still feels. And the heart that feels deeply is the same heart that heaven can heal completely. Maybe you're tired of being strong. Maybe you don't want to fight another day. But even here, in this fragile moment, God's love is not far. It doesn't wait for your smile to return. It meets you exactly where your pain begins. So if today all you can offer is your silence, then give Him that. Because your silence is enough. It's the place where His presence can finally breathe. You are not unseen. You are not unheard. You are simply being held, softly, quietly, by the one who knows how to heal what you can't describe. The weight of unspoken sadness. There are sorrows so quiet that even your own heart hesitates to name them. You wake up, carry on with the day, and nobody suspects that you're walking through invisible storms. You've become so good at being okay that even you start to believe it sometimes. But then, Without warning, the silence returns, and it feels heavier than before. Sadness has a way of hiding inside ordinary moments. You feel it when you stand still in the kitchen, when you drive alone and the road seems endless, when you lie down at night and the world becomes too quiet. It's not the loud kind of pain that others notice. It's the silent ache that builds behind the ribs, the kind that steals your breath and leaves no visible wound. You tell yourself to be strong, to push through, to keep faith. But faith can feel distant when the weight inside your chest grows heavier each day. You start wondering if your sadness makes you ungrateful, if your tears mean your faith isn't enough. And so, you hold it in. You smile harder. You pray faster. And you begin to believe that silence is safer than honesty. But the truth is this: God never asked you to carry your sadness alone. He never asked you to pretend that everything is fine. The silence you hold is not a sign of strength. It's a sign of exhaustion. And exhaustion is not failure. It's a cry for rest. There is a reason you feel so tired. Your soul has been trying to speak, but you keep telling it to be quiet. You've been editing your pain to make it more acceptable to others. But your Creator is not uncomfortable with your sadness. He is not waiting for you to fix yourself before coming close. He is the one who meets you in the middle of the quiet, when words fail and tears become your only prayer. If you've been wondering why the silence feels heavier lately, maybe it's because God is trying to turn that silence into a sanctuary. He's not punishing you with solitude. He's preparing you for healing. In every unspoken ache, He's waiting for the moment you stop pretending and simply say, "I can't carry this anymore." When you finally reach that point, you will not find judgment, only mercy. God's love does not break the silence by shouting. It enters it softly, like light finding a way through closed curtains. He doesn't demand explanations. He just stays. He stays through the sadness, through the stillness, through the nights when even your faith feels quiet. And in that staying, something begins to change. You realize that being seen by God is the first step to being healed by Him. That you don't have to be understood by everyone, only by the one who never misinterprets your silence. You begin to see that sadness, when placed in His hands, is not an end. It's the beginning of transformation. So tonight, if the silence feels unbearable, remember this: heaven is not ignoring you. Heaven is holding you. And the God who collects your tears is already weaving peace into your sorrow. When prayer becomes a whisper, there comes a point when prayer no longer sounds like words, when what once flowed freely from your heart turns into silence so deep it feels like absence. You try to pray, but all that comes out is a sigh, a pause, or a single word you keep repeating, because it's all you have left. You used to have the strength to ask for miracles. Now you just hope God still listens when you say nothing at all. It's hard to explain that kind of exhaustion, the one that seeps into your faith, not just your body. You sit there, eyes open or closed, and you don't even know what to ask for anymore. You've already prayed for healing, for change, for strength, for peace. And when nothing seems to move, when life still feels heavy, you begin to wonder if heaven has grown quiet too. But here is a truth the tired soul often forgets. God hears the prayers you don't speak. He understands the ones that form only in tears, the ones hidden beneath your breathing, the ones whispered not through lips but through pain. When you can't speak, He listens to your silence. When you can't stand, He stands beside you. And when you think your prayer has failed to reach heaven, it's already resting in His hands. There is a sacred beauty in the quiet kind of faith, the faith that no longer shouts but waits. It's not the kind that tries to control the outcome. It's the kind that trusts without needing to see the result. This is the faith that heaven treasures most, because it's the faith of those who still believe, even when belief feels impossible. Sometimes you don't need more words. You just need to stay in the silence long enough to feel His presence again. That's where prayer begins to change. It stops being a list of requests and becomes an exchange of hearts. Your silence speaks and his love responds. Not always with answers, but with assurance. Not with explanations, but with peace that doesn't make sense. The kind that settles over you like dawn after a long night. God's silence is never rejection. It's often an invitation, a call to trust deeper, to rest longer, to believe that his work continues even when you can't see it. The quiet that feels empty is often the moment heaven is closest. Maybe right now you think you've stopped praying, but the truth is that your entire being has become a prayer. Your breath, your waiting, your tears, they all speak the same language. Surrender. And God understands surrender better than any words. So when you can't pray, don't force it. Just sit in the stillness and let his love fill the space where your words used to be. Because prayer isn't about how much you say. It's about how much you allow yourself to be seen by the one who already knows everything you cannot say. And when you do that, when you stop striving and start resting, you'll discover that your whisper was never too small. It was sacred, and heaven has been listening all along. God's love in the shadows. It's easy to believe in God's love when life feels bright, when doors open, when prayers are answered, when joy fills the air around you. But what about the days when everything goes quiet? When no miracle comes? When the silence stretches so long that it starts to feel like abandonment? It's in those moments, when hope seems dim, that the truest form of God's love begins to work. Quietly, invisibly, faithfully. You may not see it, but God moves most deeply in the shadows. He works where your eyes can't see, and your heart struggles to believe. The same darkness that frightens you is often the place where his presence lingers most closely. Because his light doesn't always arrive as brightness. Sometimes it comes as a whisper in the dark, a peace that hides beneath the pain. You think that if you can't feel him, he must be far away. But his silence is not distance, it's depth. The deeper he works, the quieter he becomes. And while you wait, wondering if he's still near, he's rebuilding what you thought was lost. Every unanswered prayer becomes a brick in the unseen foundation he's laying for your healing. God hides his miracles in the mundane. While you are breaking, he is shaping. While you are crying, he is cleansing. While you are losing what you thought you needed, he is making room for what will last. That's what divine love does. It restores through the very things that seem to destroy. If you could see what heaven sees, you'd understand that nothing in your life has been wasted. Every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, every ache that didn't make sense, they've all been part of his preparation. You see darkness, he sees transformation. You see silence, he hears surrender. And when you think your story is ending, he's already writing the next chapter. The shadow seasons of your life are not evidence of God's absence, but proof of his craftsmanship. Light doesn't disappear in the dark, it refines. And faith doesn't die in silence, it deepens. You are not forgotten, you are being formed. God's love isn't just something that shines when life is easy. It's the presence that stays when nothing else does. So if you find yourself in a shadow right now, don't curse the darkness. Listen, because it's often there, in that still unseen place where God whispers the words your soul has been longing to hear. I am still here. I have never left. Even in the shadows, my love is holding you. Heaven reads what the soul cannot say. There are moments when your soul is so full that language collapses. You try to speak, but your emotions have no shape. Your thoughts are unfinished, and the ache inside you refuses to turn into words. You sit before God in silence, unable to explain what's breaking you, and yet in that very silence, heaven understands everything. Because God does not wait for explanations. He listens to the pulse of your heart, to the rhythm of your breath, to the tremor in your silence. He hears the prayer that never left your lips. He reads the language of your soul fluently because he wrote it. When you are too broken to form words, you are not faithless. You are human, and your humanity is not a barrier to God's love. It's the very reason it exists. He doesn't need eloquence, he needs honesty. He doesn't measure your devotion by how much you can say, but by how real you allow yourself to be before him. The soul speaks in ways the world cannot measure. It speaks through longing, through tears, through the heaviness that sits quietly in your chest. It speaks through that strange ache that wakes you at night, the one you can't name, but God already knows. He reads it like a familiar letter, written in ink only heaven can see. When you say nothing, he still hears. The fear behind your quiet, the hope buried under your fatigue, the trust that refuses to die even when faith feels distant. He doesn't misunderstand your silence. He interprets it with mercy. He doesn't grow impatient. He waits until you're ready to see that you've been understood all along. Sometimes we fear silence because we think it means distance. But silence with God is not distance. It's intimacy. It's the sacred space where your words end and his understanding begins. It's where performance dies and authenticity breathes again. That's why the holiest prayers are often the quietest ones. There are prayers made of songs and prayers made of tears. There are prayers made of words and prayers made of waiting. And then there are prayers made of stillness, where the soul simply sits before God and says nothing, trusting that he already knows. That is the highest form of prayer, surrender. Heaven is not moved by noise but by truth. Your soul's raw honesty reaches places your voice never could. When you stop trying to explain and simply exist in his presence, you discover something miraculous, that your silence was never empty. It was full of him. You may think your heart is too complicated, your feelings too tangled, your wounds too deep for God to understand. But the one who made you does not misunderstand what he created. He knows every shadow, every spark, every word you didn't say. You are fully known, not partially, not occasionally, but completely. So today, if you find yourself unable to pray, don't fight it. Just breathe, and let your silence rest in his presence. Let your tears become your language, your stillness, your confession, your breathing, your worship. Because in heaven, every sigh is a sentence, every tear is a verse, and every silence is a sacred conversation between your soul and God. The holy secret of tears. Tears have a language of their own. They appear without permission, breaking through the walls you've built to keep your pain contained. They fall silently, yet each one carries a truth your words could never hold. Most people see them as weakness, as failure to remain strong. But tears are sacred. They are the soul's way of cleansing what the heart cannot carry any longer. When you cry, something ancient inside you is speaking. It's the part of you that still remembers love, the part that refuses to go numb no matter how many disappointments you've faced. You may not realize it, but your tears are proof that you are still alive, not just breathing, but feeling, hoping, reaching for healing even in the dark. And that reaching is where transformation begins. Tears are not the end of faith. They are the proof that faith still breathes beneath the pain. Because you would not cry if you had already given up. You cry because somewhere within you still believes there is more love, more peace, more light waiting beyond the ache. Your tears are not a sign of defeat. They are a doorway through which compassion enters. Every tear you shed is noticed, not by the eyes of the world, but by the presence that sees beyond what others can. There is something holy in the moment when you let yourself feel, instead of pretending to be fine. Because the moment you allow yourself to feel, healing has already begun. The tears that fall are not wasted. They water the ground where your soul will grow again. Sometimes the tears come without warning, in the middle of a song, a memory, a quiet thought that catches you off guard. They come as if something deep inside you has decided that it's time to release what you've been holding too tightly. And in that release, you are not falling apart. you are falling open. You are opening a space for light to enter, for peace to return, for wholeness to find you again. There is a sacred rhythm to tears. They rise from pain, pass through surrender, and end in clarity. That's why you often feel lighter after crying. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because your soul has exhaled what it no longer needed to hold. Your tears are a form of truth, and truth always sets something free. It takes courage to cry. It takes even greater courage to see your tears as holy, to understand that they are not something to hide but something to honor. Because through every tear, you are allowing love to reach deeper. You are saying, even without words, I still trust life to heal me. And life always responds to that trust. So the next time tears rise and you try to hold them back, remember this. They are not a weakness to control, but a wisdom to welcome. They are your soul's way of washing away what no longer belongs. Let them fall. Let them speak. And when they do, listen closely, because inside every tear there is a voice that whispers, you are being restored. The silence where God heals. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound but from the presence of something greater. It's not the silence of loneliness or distance. It's the silence of transformation. It happens when life finally stops demanding that you explain everything, and the soul begins to breathe again. It's the quiet after the storm, the moment when the heart, exhausted from all its questions, finally sits still long enough for healing to begin. You might think silence is empty, that it means nothing is happening. But silence is the space where everything invisible begins to move. It's the place where the noise of fear fades and the whisper of love becomes audible again. When you fall into that quiet, it may feel strange at first, almost unbearable, because in the stillness you face everything you've been trying to outrun. Yet that is precisely where the deep work begins. Healing doesn't shout. It arrives softly, like light through a curtain. It doesn't demand your attention. It simply waits for it. The kind of healing that lasts cannot be forced. It can only unfold when the noise stops. Because peace is not something you find. It's something that surfaces once you stop drowning it out. There is a reason life sometimes grows quiet around you. The people disappear. The plans pause. The distractions fade. Not as punishment, but as preparation. The silence you fear is often the invitation you've been avoiding. An invitation to hear your own heart again, and the voice that has always been speaking underneath the noise. In silence, what was blurry becomes clear. You begin to notice what your spirit has been trying to tell you. The answers you begged for were never absent. They were simply waiting for you to be still enough to hear them. In stillness, you realize that healing is not about forgetting what happened. It's about seeing it differently. It's about finding the wisdom hidden inside what once broke you. And though the world teaches you to fill every moment, to scroll, to talk, to fix, to prove, healing teaches you to pause. Because only in the pause do you meet what's real. Only in the silence can love reach the places noise could never touch. And it's in that sacred stillness that you start to feel it. A quiet peace that doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't erase your scars. It reminds you that they've already stopped bleeding. Silence is not a void. It's a vessel. It holds everything your words couldn't. It gathers the fragments of your spirit and begins to piece them back together. In silence, the soul repairs itself in ways the mind can't understand. That is where healing hides, not in doing more, but in learning how to simply be. So if life has gone quiet around you, don't rush to fill the space. Don't panic when the noise fades. Let the silence hold you. Because it's there, in that vast and tender stillness, that the invisible hands of love begin their most sacred work, restoring what pain once shattered, and reminding you that you were never alone in your healing. When comfort comes through memory, Sometimes healing doesn't arrive as a sudden miracle, but as a quiet memory that rises without warning. A scent that takes you back to a gentler time. A song that once carried you through pain. A small detail from the past that suddenly feels like light breaking through your present darkness. It's in these simple moments that love reminds you it has never left. The human heart holds thousands of memories, and many of them hide pieces of comfort that only resurface when we're ready to feel them again. There are memories that used to hurt, and yet, over time, they begin to soften. They stop shouting about what was lost and start whispering about what was learned. This is how healing often works, not as forgetting, but as remembering differently. Sometimes the most sacred form of comfort is not something new that arrives, but something old that finally makes sense. You recall the person who once stood by you, the word that gave you strength, the moment that taught you resilience, and you begin to see that what seemed ordinary then was actually grace disguised as daily life. You didn't recognize it at the time, but the love that kept you alive was already present in small details: a look, a voice, a moment of quiet understanding. Life has a way of revealing that even the past wasn't as empty as you once thought. The same presence that holds you now was holding you then. Every memory that returns with warmth instead of pain is proof that you have healed in ways you didn't notice. What once made you cry now makes you breathe more deeply. What once felt like an ending now feels like a chapter in a larger story, one that continues to unfold with meaning. There are also moments when memory itself becomes a message. It arrives unexpectedly, like someone gently tapping your shoulder from within. You hear an echo of something you needed to remember, a phrase, a prayer, a sound that once gave you peace. And even if no one else notices, you know it wasn't random. It was love, finding another way to reach you. When you allow memories to become sacred, they stop holding you captive. They start guiding you home. They remind you that every experience, even the painful ones, carried a fragment of divine wisdom. What once broke you now teaches you tenderness. What once silenced you now shows you the value of listening. In this way, the past stops being a wound and becomes a teacher. So when a memory appears and stirs emotion, don't push it away. Sit with it. Let it speak to you. Because maybe it's not there to remind you of pain, but to show you how far you've come. Maybe it's not there to reopen wounds, but to prove that you survived what once felt impossible. Comfort doesn't always come from new beginnings. Sometimes it comes from remembering how you made it through the nights you thought would never end. The same strength that held you then is still within you now. The same quiet love that guided you before is guiding you still. And when you realize that, even memory becomes a form of prayer, a conversation between who you were and who you are becoming, both held tenderly by the same eternal love. Angels in disguise. There are moments in life when comfort doesn't come from within or above, but through someone standing right beside you. A stranger's smile on a difficult day. A friend who calls without knowing why. A word spoken at the exact moment your heart needed to hear it. These moments are not accidents. They are the quiet evidence that love often chooses human hands and human voices to reach us. Life is full of these hidden messengers. They don't arrive with wings or glowing light. They look like ordinary people, someone offering help, someone listening, someone showing up. And yet behind their simplicity, something greater moves. There's an invisible kindness that flows through them, one that seems to understand what words cannot express. It's as if the universe, or something sacred within it, arranges these encounters to remind you that you are never forgotten. Sometimes you only recognize their presence after they're gone. You look back and realize that the moment you thought you were alone, someone appeared to help you take just one more step. You didn't know it then, but that person was carrying a piece of grace meant only for you. Their kindness became a bridge across your darkness. Their voice became the sound of comfort when your own thoughts were too heavy. And the memory of that small act continues to echo long after the moment has passed. It's easy to underestimate how divine small gestures can be. A shared silence, a comforting glance, a gentle word. They carry more healing than sermons or explanations ever could. Because love doesn't need to announce itself to be real. Its power lies in its presence, in the way it makes you feel seen and safe again. That is what angels in disguise do. They remind you, through their humanity, of something eternal. But it's not only others who play this role. Sometimes you are the one chosen to bring comfort. You are the one who shows up, who listens, who offers peace to someone else's pain. You might not realize it, but every act of compassion turns you into a vessel of something higher. You become part of the same current of love that once reached you. And that is how healing continues. It moves from heart to heart, quietly, endlessly. If you've ever doubted whether your life still carries meaning, remember this. Your presence can be an answer to someone's prayer. Your kindness can be the light that helps them see again. You don't have to fix the world to make it better. You only have to love in the moment that's in front of you. The truth is, the world is full of unseen angels. Some wearing faces we know, some we meet only once, and some we'll never recognize at all. But every time love moves through one life to touch another, something divine happens. The ordinary becomes sacred. The moment becomes eternal. And the same love that once reached you through others continues its journey, flowing through you now, finding its next destination in the heart of someone who needs it. So look closely. The world may seem quiet, but it's never empty. Every act of compassion is a whisper from the divine, reminding you that no one walks alone, not even for a moment. The day you stopped explaining your pain. There comes a day when you stop trying to make others understand what lives inside you. You grow tired of searching for the right words, tired of watching people nod with polite sympathy while never truly hearing you. You realize that no one can fully see the world through your eyes, and that maybe it was never your task to make them. There's a quiet liberation in that moment, a kind of peace that arrives when you no longer feel the need to be understood to be valid. For so long you tried to explain your sadness. You tried to wrap your pain in sentences, hoping that if someone could just comprehend it, it would hurt less. But pain rarely translates cleanly into language. It's personal, sacred even, too complex to be measured by how well you can describe it. So when words failed, you blamed yourself. You thought you weren't explaining clearly enough. You thought your emotions were too much, too complicated. And you began to hide them behind a mask of composure, learning to smile in the same moments your soul wanted to collapse. But one day, something shifts. You begin to understand that your healing doesn't depend on others' understanding. You stop trying to fit your experience into their comfort. You stop apologizing for being sensitive, for feeling deeply, for carrying invisible scars. And you start listening, not to the opinions around you, but to the quiet truth within. It tells you that your pain does not need to be justified to be real. It only needs to be acknowledged. It's strange, but that's often the beginning of freedom, the moment you stop defending your heart. You no longer waste energy trying to make others see what only your soul can know. Instead, you start using that energy to heal. You learn to be gentle with yourself, to give space to your own story without rushing it, to honor your emotions as visitors with something to teach you. The day you stop explaining your pain is the day you start understanding your worth, because you realize that the only one who truly needs to understand your journey is the presence that walks with you through it. The same quiet strength that kept you alive through nights of silence now teaches you to trust your own inner knowing. It whispers that your emotions are not obstacles. They are signals guiding you home to yourself. And when you reach that place, you begin to live differently. You stop chasing validation and start seeking peace. You stop performing strength and start practicing honesty. You realize that your vulnerability is not a flaw. It's the bridge through which connection flows. And even if no one else sees the depth of what you've endured, you know that life itself has witnessed it. and that is enough. Healing is not about being understood, it's about being whole. It's about allowing your experiences to shape you without defining you, and your pain to soften you without breaking you. When you stop explaining, you begin to listen, not to others, but to the quiet within you that has been waiting all along. So if you've grown tired of trying to make the world understand, let that fatigue become your turning point. Let it guide you back to silence. Not the kind that isolates, but the kind that restores. Because in that silence, you'll find something greater than understanding. You'll find acceptance. And acceptance, more than any explanation, is what finally allows your soul to rest. The gentle voice of love. There is a kind of voice that does not need to be loud to be powerful. It doesn't arrive in the thunder of certainty or the noise of explanations. It moves softly, like wind through leaves or light across water. It's the voice that speaks when everything else inside you has fallen silent. You might not hear it with your ears, but you feel it. A warmth, a calm, a sudden knowing that you are not lost. Love has a way of reaching you without sound. It doesn't argue or persuade. It simply is. When the mind has exhausted itself trying to make sense of pain, love begins to speak in its own quiet language. It doesn't say, "Forget what happened." It says, "You're still whole, even after everything." It doesn't promise that you'll never hurt again. It promises that you'll never face your hurt alone. Most of the time, that voice doesn't come from outside. It's not a message in the sky or a sudden miracle that changes everything. It's an echo inside you, gentle and familiar, the same love that held you as a child, the same peace that visits you when you least expect it. It reminds you that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it rests quietly inside you, waiting to be remembered. You may have spent years listening to voices that told you otherwise, voices of fear, doubt, guilt, or shame. They speak loudly because they want to be believed, but the voice of love never competes. It simply waits for you to get quiet enough to hear it again. When you do, it's unmistakable. It sounds like home. There's a reason love speaks softly. Only a gentle voice can reach a wounded heart. Only calm can enter the places that chaos has damaged. That's why healing never rushes. It moves slowly, like light finding its way through the cracks. The voice of love is patient. It doesn't demand that you hurry or pretend. It only asks that you stay, breathe, and listen. You might hear it in nature, in the rhythm of the rain or the silence between waves. You might feel it in art, in music, or in the kindness of a stranger. Love uses everything to reach you. Every sound, every pause, every breath. It's not limited by form. It takes whatever shape your heart can receive. If you've been waiting for a sign, maybe this is it. The quiet that surrounds you is not emptiness, it's an invitation. The peace that touches you for a moment is not random, it's recognition. Something greater than you is always speaking, always holding, always reminding. You have not been forgotten. The voice of love will never shame you for being broken. It will never demand perfection before it offers peace. It will whisper to you in the middle of the night, "I am here. You can rest now." And even when you can't find words, that voice will keep repeating what your soul already knows. You are loved, you are safe, and you are being guided home. Learning to rest. Again. Rest is one of the hardest lessons for the soul that has suffered. After walking through pain, silence, and loss, you learn how to survive, but you forget how to rest. Your heart stays on guard, your mind keeps searching for meaning, and even in peace you feel the pull to stay alert, just in case the next storm arrives. But there comes a time when love itself calls you to stop running, not because the journey is over, but because healing requires stillness. To rest is not to give up. It is to trust. It is to say, "I no longer need to fight for what is already being cared for." Rest is not an escape from responsibility. It is the acceptance that not everything depends on your effort. The same power that carried you through pain can carry you through peace, if you let it. Many people confuse rest with doing nothing. But real rest is not the absence of action. It's the presence of alignment. It's when your heart, your mind, and your spirit move together in quiet rhythm. It's when you stop striving to prove your worth and start remembering that you already have it. Rest happens the moment you stop earning what was never meant to be earned: love, peace, forgiveness. Sometimes life will gently force you to stop. It will close doors, slow your plans, and leave you waiting in stillness. At first, you'll resist, thinking you've been forgotten or left behind. But in truth, you've been brought into a sacred pause. A pause not of punishment, but of preparation. Because the soul cannot be rebuilt in motion, it must be still long enough to feel its own heartbeat again. In rest, you begin to hear what the noise had hidden. You start to notice the simple miracles. The way light filters through your window. The way your breath steadies when you stop rushing. The way gratitude quietly returns when you stop demanding that life be different. Rest doesn't change the world around you. It changes the way you see it. It turns exhaustion into clarity, survival into serenity. There is a reason peace feels like home. Because the soul was never designed to live in constant struggle. It was meant to flow, to trust, to receive. When you rest, you return to your natural rhythm, the rhythm of grace. And that rhythm heals more than time ever could. If you're afraid to rest, ask yourself why. Who told you that you had to earn your right to pause? Who convinced you that rest was a reward instead of a necessity? The truth is, rest is sacred ground. It's where your spirit remembers its connection to everything good and eternal. It's where love whispers, "You've done enough for today, let me hold you now." So close your eyes. Release the need to understand, to fix, to hurry. Let the silence cradle you, the stillness breathe for you, the peace cover you. Because rest is not the end of your story. It's the moment you finally learn to live within it. And once you do, life begins to move again, not from exhaustion, but from peace. Not from fear, but from love. When you begin to feel light again. There comes a moment when the heaviness begins to lift, and at first you almost don't trust it. You've lived so long in survival mode that peace feels unfamiliar, even suspicious. Like a kindness you're afraid won't last. You catch yourself waiting for the next disappointment, the next wave of sadness, the next reason to close your heart again. But quietly, gently, something has shifted. You start to notice it in small ways. A deeper breath, a smile that doesn't feel forced, the sudden realization that your pain no longer defines every part of you. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It comes softly. The way dawn replaces the night, not in a burst, but in gradual light. You may not even notice at first. One day, what used to make you cry now makes you think. What used to feel impossible now feels survivable. And you realize that the weight you've carried so long has begun to dissolve. Not because life has become perfect, but because love has quietly taken its place. You begin to feel light again. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because your perspective has. The same moments that once filled you with fear, now fill you with understanding. You start to see the beauty in the process, the wisdom in the waiting, the strength in what once broke you. And somewhere deep inside, gratitude begins to rise. Not the kind that denies the pain, but the kind that honors it for what it taught you. Light feels different after darkness. It doesn't blind or overwhelm. It humbles. It teaches you to appreciate the quiet, to move slowly, to notice details you used to miss. You begin to see that joy doesn't always arrive with laughter. Sometimes it comes as simple peace. A peace that doesn't need explanation, that doesn't depend on anything outside of you. It's just there, gentle, steady, real. When light returns, it doesn't erase your past. It redeems it. Every wound becomes a window. Every scar becomes a story. You realize that even your pain had purpose, that it shaped you into someone softer, wiser, more compassionate. You begin to understand that the goal was never to avoid the dark, but to learn how to carry light within it. That's what resilience truly is, not pretending everything is fine, but finding beauty even when it isn't. You start to dream again, maybe cautiously at first, but it happens. You allow yourself to hope for things you once thought were lost forever. And as you do, you realize that light has never been something you had to search for. It was always waiting to return the moment you stopped resisting it. So when you begin to feel light again, don't rush it, don't question it. Let it fill you slowly, like sunrise over water. Let it soften the edges of your fear and remind you that life, even after heartbreak, still holds beauty. Because the light that's returning to you now isn't borrowed, it's yours. It's the same light that's been shining quietly beneath every shadow, waiting for this very moment, when you were finally ready to see it again. The return of peace. Peace doesn't arrive with noise or ceremony. It doesn't announce itself with a sign or a moment of perfection. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed, like a familiar song you hadn't realized you were humming again. It's the exhale after years of holding your breath. It's the stillness after the storm, when your heart finally believes that it's safe to rest. At first, peace feels fragile, like something that might break if you move too suddenly. You wake up expecting the weight to return, the ache to find its way back. But slowly you begin to understand. Peace isn't something you find once. It's something you learn to live with. It's not the absence of pain, but the presence of understanding. It's what remains after you've stopped fighting yourself. Peace is not earned, it's allowed. It arrives when you no longer resist what is, when you stop asking life to make sense of every loss and instead start trusting that meaning will reveal itself in time. Peace doesn't mean you forget what hurt you. It means you stop letting it define you. It's the quiet knowing that what was meant to break you actually built you. When peace returns, it doesn't erase your scars. It blesses them. It touches the wounded places within you and turns them into proof of how far you've come. You realize that every chapter, even the darkest ones, was necessary to bring you here, to this stillness, to this clarity. You stop running from your story and begin to rest inside it. The return of peace is not a single moment. It's a homecoming. It's when you look at yourself and no longer see just the pain, but the person who walked through it. It's when you stop waiting for the world to calm down before you allow yourself to breathe. It's when you understand that the peace you were searching for was never outside of you. It was within you all along, buried under layers of fear and noise. Now as you stand in this quiet place, you can finally feel it. That sacred stillness that doesn't depend on circumstances. The kind that stays, even when life is uncertain. The kind that whispers, "You have come far enough. You can rest now." And in that moment, you know, peace has returned, not as something borrowed, but as something reborn. You no longer chase what left or fear what might come. You trust the timing of your own becoming. You forgive yourself for the seasons when you couldn't see light. And you begin to live gently again, not because everything is perfect, but because your soul is finally quiet enough to see the perfection hidden inside everything. Peace doesn't mean the journey is over. It means you've learned how to walk without fear, how to breathe without rushing, how to love without holding back. It means that the same presence that carried you through pain will walk with you into every tomorrow. And that's enough. So sit in the stillness. Feel it. Let it fill the space that once held only sorrow. Because this calm, this quiet, this steady heartbeat of love, is what you were always meant to return to. Peace isn't the end of your story. It's the sound of your soul coming home. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147:3. There is a love that never rushes you, never judges you, never leaves you behind. It waits, patiently, until your heart is ready to see again. And when it does, you realize that healing was never about forgetting the pain, but about discovering that love was holding you through it all. No matter how silent your days may feel, remember this: you are seen, you are loved, and you are never walking alone. Every tear has meaning, every breath is grace, and every moment, even the quiet ones, is another chance to begin again with peace in your soul.